Hi, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Govs on the Go Alumni Edition, a podcast featuring alumni from the College of Arts and Letters here at Austin Peay State University. My name is Dr. Buzz Hoon. I'm the Dean of the college. I'm also the host of the podcast. And today I'm talking with Lawson Mabry, who graduated with a degree in English and a minor in history back in 1977. Welcome to the show, Lawson.
Thank you, Buzz. Good to be here.
So you are one of the perfect Cole representatives, arts and letters representatives, because you had interest in two of our programs. I like that. It's always fun to talk to people about that. So let's give everybody a life update. What's going on? Where are you? And what's going on in your life?
I am 68 years old now. I'm still working. I am primarily a lot developer in Clarksville. I build lots and sell them to builders. I have about 400 lots under construction right now, so we operate at a fairly large scale. I have a partner, Chad Byard, who's a good bit younger than me, but owns a utility and paving grading company, and he builds everything, and I get out and sell it. I have two children. I have a son who's graduating from Wake Forest University in 3 weeks and going to work for Barclays Investment Bank as an analyst in New York City. And then I have a daughter who graduated from Wake Forest 3 years ago and followed her dad's footsteps a little bit, had a double major in English and business. And she's getting ready to start a full-time 2-year MBA program at probably either Vanderbilt or UNC. She hasn't decided which one she's going to go to yet. So anyway, I have married, have a lovely wife, Beth Fletcher Mabry, who went to Austin Peay as well about 7 years after me, and just kind of a good old boy in my hometown, I guess.
And a proud Austin Peay supporter.
That's right. Let's go Peay.
So let's talk about your beginning. I think it's interesting. You mentioned that your family has been in Clarksville. I think you said since 1830. Is that right?
No, before then.
Even before then.
My earliest grandfather moved here from North Carolina about 1800 and settled out where Fort Campbell is now, and had a big farm out there. And then the other sides of his family, they were the Meriwethers, Meriwether Lewis, and the Dabney families, and they came from the area around Charlottesville, Virginia. They had worn out the land from tobacco use, and the story goes that Dr. Meriwether was on his way to Missouri to look at some land he'd bought, and that was when Meriwether, his nephew, was the governor of the Missouri Territory, Meriwether Lewis, and they stopped here to visit some people, and they saw the farmland, and they sent for everyone, and they all settled in the area, basically in northern Montgomery County, from Guthrie to the Stewart County line. And so they came here, and in about the 1880s, the Mabry family moved into town, and the Forbes Mabry House, which is on North 2nd Street next to an office building that Austin Peay State University owns, I think on Forbes Avenue and North 2nd Street. They moved here, my great-grandmother wanted to be next to her aunt, Lucy Dabney, at the Smith Training House. And they also had 12 kids, and they wanted to send them to school. And they all went to, my family, they all went to school at Stewart College. We have Stewart College report cards from 1872, and then later Southwestern at Memphis, And so our family's connection with the campus goes back to the 1860s. But anyway, they kept their farm, had a tobacco business in town, and then my father and mother, my mother's family were merchants in Clarksville. They had a hardware and harness shop store, and but both my parents graduated from Austin P. My mother taught in the English department for a number of years, and Dad was a business major, and then I ended up graduating from Austin P. As did my sister Melinda.
Oh, wow. And so let's talk a little bit, because I think that what we're going to mainly focus on throughout this time is also not only your education in Austin P, but your career in Clarksville and seeing the cityscape change so drastically. I'm sure. What was it like growing up for you in
Clarksville? When I was growing up, there were about 20,000 people here, and we were related to all of them, I think. I think we've attended the same Trinity Episcopal Church on Franklin Street. Our family's attended that church since the 1830s, and so it's so funny. I'd go to church and see see all the people that buildings are named after at Austin P. And Gustavus Henry Smith, his son, lived two doors, where Emerald Hill is. His son and grandson and his wife lived two doors from my parents. And so, it was just a very small old southern tobacco town. Fort Campbell really shook it up. Fort Campbell made a huge difference. It changed the whole dynamic of the community for good or bad, depending on your perspective. But what dumb luck for a kid with very few prospects to graduate with a degree in English and be able to profit off all the people that have moved into Clarksville, and they're still coming too. So as it's just crazy. It's hard to believe. When I was a kid, where Publix there was a hospital, Publix on Madison Street, and that was the city limits. It's farms from there on. There were farms from there on out. I remember there was a farm on Golf Club Lane across from the Kroger store when I was a kid. So, we'd go to Dunbar Cave on the weekends and go to my grandparents' farm out in St. Bethlehem. There's a subdivision on it now, and I was responsible for part of that. So, but it's changed a lot, and in a lot of ways it's better. In a lot of ways, some would, probably take exception with that, I guess.
So, what kind of things did you like to do when you weren't? I'm sure your mom, as an English professor here, was somebody that made sure that you were always taking care of your studies. So, what did you like to do when you weren't in class?
Well, I wasn't really good at my studies, to tell you the truth. I had a late birthday and I skipped a grade. I was very disruptive. So they made me, I remember they took me to the principal's office in second grade, and I thought I was in trouble because my parents were there, and they asked me to read out of an eighth grade book. And I did that. And they asked me, would you like to go to the next grade? And I said, well, of course I would. And the next day I was in the third grade, and my girlfriend was Glenda in the second grade. Well, there was a Glenda in the third grade, so that was my girlfriend in the third grade. And I never learned cursive writing. I missed that entirely. And I realized I was just disruptive, and they were hoping that would make me a little less disruptive. So I was a challenging student, and was creative, but not particularly. I was bored with my studies, I would say. But I had a lot of fun, and I always worked a job. When I was 16, when I was a senior in high school, I was getting out at 1 every day to work with the distributive education kids that got off to go work on the farm. I'd go work in a grocery store. I was entirely, I was not academically focused at all in high school, but I became so when I got to Austin P. My parents, I got in a little trouble when I was a senior in high school, and they insisted that I stay home for a year, and I stayed and made some friends and liked it. And, I was a cyclist, and, when I was 17, I rode to we did several trips up into Appalachia. I rode to Ann Arbor, Michigan one summer. We took about a month. I rode my bicycle to Florida when in college, and so I did a lot of
Wow.
and that was when no one did that. I mean, it was 1973, and we and they just someone had just, I think Jerry had just started making pannier bags, and they really didn't exist in the United States. And so I had a couple of friends, and we just take off. I mean, we go off. Didn't have any money, go off, and people would put us up. And we were pretty good at mooching and asking anybody that they knew where we could camp, and they usually say, "Well, y'all come stay with us and feed us," and so on and so forth. So I did some bicycle racing, and I rode to New Orleans about 10 years ago. It was my last big trip, but I continued to do that for a long time, and it was a lot of that was a lot of fun. So that's what I did for fun, which is kind of an unusual hobby.
It is. I've heard people in Europe bike it across Europe, but I really haven't known anybody in the United States that would just do those kind of things.
Well, it wasn't a thing then. It's a thing now. 1976, they hit the bicentennial and they put in a transcontinental route, northern and southern tier, and there are quite a people who do it. But I did it before it was even. And I think about it, how there weren't any cell phones, and we would be out. Bill Lyle was one guy I went with, Lane Lyle's brother, the architect, and we would be out for a week at a time, and our parents didn't know where we were within a 150-mile radius. Yeah, I just can't imagine. And we call, we both call collect on the same night, and that would really get their goat because but I mean it was just crazy. I mean we just had the time of our lives. We would just, I mean it was just a wonderful experience. I can't tell you how much fun it was just to get off and I remember one night we'd been in Indiana for about a week, and the drinking age was 21 there, and we got to Ohio, and it was 18, and we crossed the state line at 8 o'clock at night. And first thing we did was find a bar and went in, and usually this there was a big factory in this town. So they made step vans, and so we went in there. All these workers from the day shift just gotten off, and usually we tell people they say, "What are you boys doing?" And we tell them, and they'd start buying us drinks. These guys didn't care, they weren't impressed at all. It was Friday afternoon. They weren't going to give us any of their hard-earned money. But needless to say, we got hammered. And I remember the next morning we woke up in a muddy corn furrow. We across the street from the bar. Nobody offered us a ride home, and we just woke up just with a terrible headache and mud all over us. But we had a big time. It was a lot of fun.
But I should have asked you, do your kids know of any of these stories that we're telling?
Oh yeah. My son, Will did a century. Yeah, I've taken Will on some tours, and he did 100 miles in 24 hours when he was 11 years old. So he's a pretty good rider. But my daughter, she's a girly girl. She didn't really have a lot of interest in it. She's got a bike, but she's ridden it about 3 or 4 times. I finally took it to her over in North Carolina, and I was in her apartment last month, and it hadn't moved since I set it there 2 years ago. So so much for that.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get back to your story. We've left you at Austin P. Now you're a young person starting out there, and your parents had said you need to go there for a year, but you found some connections. And can you talk about some of the things how you got connected at Austin P?
Well, I grew up. All the English faculty and the history faculty were very good friends of my parents. Dr. Holt, Dr. Irwin, Dr. Young at the art department, Lou Tatum. Of course, you don't know any of these people, but Al Bekas, Dick Gildry, all these people that really good professors there, and I grew up with them. They were either in a bridge club with my parents or a wine tasting group or something like that. And so I think when I was at Austin P, I really didn't have any direction at all. I don't think I ever had an advisor, to tell you the truth. I just kind of figured it out on my own. And so I just took. I had I had a major in English, a minor in history, almost a major in geology. I mean, almost a minor in geology, like one class short of a minor in philosophy. I just took a few business, a couple accounting courses. And I think, and I look back at it, I think I was just drawn to the really good teachers, and I think it was the first time that I ever had an academic experience that was satisfying, where I was challenged, and I made very good grades until I joined a fraternity, and then they slowly went down. But I still, I had a great time there. I was editorial editor of the All-State my sophomore and junior year. Then my senior year, I edited the Tower, which was a literary anthology that put out by students every year as a magazine. And I don't know what it's called now. I'm sure there's something.
It's on Free Press.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so and it was just a once a year deal then, but it was so fun because I was on the All-State. I know Sherwin Cliff died the other day, who was our faculty advisor, and I went to this. I told this story. I had the same position on my new student newspaper at Clarksville High School, and we won a lot of state awards. Had a really good paper, and Jeff Bibb was the editor of both, and Larry Smith was a sports editor of both, and so we kind of just slipped into this. It was like Clarksville High Extended with our newspaper. And I remember about halfway through the semester, I'll go to my mailbox, and there's a check for $250 in there, and it was a scholarship. It was a performance scholarship,
wow,
which I didn't know I had. And my parents, of course, I didn't tell my parents because they were paying my tuition, which was about $140 a quarter. It was designed to pay my tuition, so it was like drinks all around for about 2 or 3 weeks after I got that check. It was so much fun. I never did tell them I had a scholarship, but anyway, it was just like And then every semester, about halfway through the quarter, I'd get that check, and it was pretty nice. I probably got a lot of dates and made a lot of friends, over pitchers of beer from that. So it was a good thing. But I really had a pretty good experience there. I never really thought I intended to transfer and didn't. I just really didn't. I was not. There's a great short story about it from a good friend of mine. His name's Dan Ross. He died about 15 years ago, and he taught at University of Minnesota, and ended up his career. He taught at Rhodes College in Memphis, which was the Southwestern, then with Alan Tate, and he was a good friend of Caroline Gordon, who was a very well-known novelist, highly regarded novelist, and a cousin of mine. And Dan wrote this wonderful short story about a cousin of his, and it's the value of an unfocused education. And I always think of that short story because I certainly had an unfocused education. I really didn't. I had all my friends, with their accounting degrees and very focused vocational pursuits, but I did not share those.
Well, yeah, but now
I took the road less traveled.
There you go. I think that also that after years of perspective, you may have seen how you were growing as a person, and didn't realize it at the time. Even the work ethic, I think, helps. As you progress through your career.
Yeah, and I always had 2 or 3 jobs. I worked in a grocery store, and for some reason, I just felt like I didn't really have to work. I mean, Austin Peay, and I'm not saying that we weren't wealthy, but Austin, back then the state funded 90% of the cost of the operation of most universities around the country. And we didn't pay anything. I could work 4 or 5 weeks at a minimum wage job and pay my tuition for the year. It just wasn't very expensive. But I wasn't really thinking ahead, and I guess I'm just lucky. It all worked out okay for me. But I did not have any. I thought I might want to teach, but then I kind of realized that graduate school was going to be a lot of work.
Well, it's good you came to that conclusion before you went there. I did.
I remember telling everybody I was going to go to Berkeley and go to Berkeley and get a English graduate degree. And I the more I researched, the more I realized I probably shouldn't have told anybody that I really didn't. I probably couldn't have gotten in the first place. And second, if I'd gotten in, I'd probably flunked out or partied out. So anyway, that was something impressive to tell people for a year or two, until I finally realized the gravity of this decision I would have to make, and I punted on that.
Well, I do believe it's always been my reasoning that the Spirit guides us in particular ways, opens up doors, even though we're not looking for that path to travel across. And sometimes it's in our best interest, and we just didn't realize it at the time.
Well, that's true. That's true.
So when you graduated, how did you ended up working for your dad?
Yeah, my dad was a partner with Jimmy Hallman and Conor Maryland Hallman, and he just I was running the disco. Uh, I worked at a stereo shop, and I was running the disco for the owner, who was a physics teacher at Clarksville High School, a dear friend of mine. And the disco was extremely expensive, and it had this $15,000 system, and they would only let the guys who sold stereo equipment run this big Sarwin Vega system, and they would only let us do it. And I remember I walk in there one day, and my first day, and there were plexiglass walls up 8 feet high around the booth. And I said, "What's this for?" And the manager said, "Well, you'll see." And that first night, about 11 o'clock, somebody starts throwing a beer mug and smashes against the plexiglass. And I understood that's to keep me out of the firing line. So I did that. And I remember going to Daddy, and Sinclair Daniel he wanted to open. He thought I was a good worker. And, I really, looking back, I was someone, it would have not been the best choice for me, but it'd been a good choice for him to have me. He said, "I'd like to open up one of these in Murfreesboro, and I'll pay you $35,000 a year." And I went to my daddy and I said, "Sinclair's going to pay me $35,000 a year to open up a disco, Daddy." He said, "I heard enough." He said, "You just get your real estate license and come work here." And so that's what I did. And I sold real estate. My father was in his 50s, and he had all these business partners who were 50s and 60s. And they had done some subdivision development in Clarksville, and basically they just wanted somebody to do the work. So they would find a deal, and they would give me like a 1/6 interest, and I'd do all the work and make them a lot of money. And I got a little resentful about it, but then I realized I was learning how to do this, and this was pretty good, and they were telling me what to do. And the older partners would say, "No, if I made mistakes, it wasn't with my money, it was with theirs." So I learned how to build apartments and contract for stuff.
Wow.
And I taught myself accounting. That's about when the Apple II computer first came out. And so a friend and I bought an Apple II. We went to the bank and borrowed the money, and our payment was $140 a month. So I think it was $4,000 to have two little floppy disk drives. And, everything has more power than it had. I remember we went to Austin Peay and took a Fortran course, as we thought we would need to learn computer science, how to program. Of course, we were too dumb to realize the whole reason Apple II was so successful, because you didn't have to learn how to program. But anyway, we did that. I, learned on VisiCalc and learned how to do financial modeling. It's so funny. My son is a finance major, and he has to do modeling for like mergers and acquisitions. And it's the exact same thing that I've pretty much taught myself how to do. So I taught myself accounting. I'm a pretty good accountant. Of course, I have accountants that tell me that sometimes that my baby's ugly, but I learned how to do that. And so I really was able to kind of self-teach myself a lot of things that I've used. And I can write well, and that's always been very helpful, and it's especially helpful right now in the business world. It's so interesting. My daughter did a double English and business major at her college, and I know in her last job, she was a designated writer. When they were working on a big contract, advertising agency or something, important email, they would always give it to her to write. because most people can't, most educated people don't really write well now. It's not, it's not a core requirement in many schools are so vocationally focused that it's really funny. Elizabeth is writes like the wind, and my mother made sure that she, in my mother's obituary, I remember I wrote that she enjoyed reading and correcting her grandchildren's grammar. So, I just spent my whole life being corrected. And you feel free to correct me if I misspeak. It won't offend me at all. But so, I mean, but I had a great, I think a lot of the things I learned as a liberal arts major at Austin Peay, I don't regret anything. I wish I'd taken a little more counting. But that would be my advice. Any of you guys out there, any of you students, if anyone ever watches this, you can be idealistic and major in history or speech or drama or English. Throw in an accounting class for safety, just in case.
So you're doing all this on the job training, kind of learning as you go. And again, I think that the growth of Clarksville in some ways must have been mirroring what was going on. I mean, because as you said, Fort Campbell, everything starts to go, because we're now 175,000 people.
Yeah, it's just insane. It's just hard. And also look at Austin Peay. Austin Peay was like a little small liberal arts school when I went there. And, it's a university now. It was a university by name then, but I think we had 3,000 students, something like that. So, yeah, I mean, it's just amazing. I mean, it's just providing incredible opportunity. We've got, a lot of the secret in Clarksville is not that people move here. It's just that they don't leave.
Right. That's
because
right.
Soldiers, they're probably, I think we're up to 36% of the soldiers who get out of the Army at Fort Campbell stay here. And more want to stay, but we don't have jobs for them all. So, but that's getting better. So, there are people who move here, but a soldier comes in, he marries, has children, maybe his in-laws move here, take care of the kids, or, and then they get out of the Army and they stay here and go to work at a local business or a factory, or oftentimes go back to work for a contractor, for Boeing or somebody like that on Fort Campbell. So it's just this virtuous cycle in terms of population growth. And I've been, I've been able to benefit from that. I mean, if you start a business in Clarksville, and, it will grow organically because of the population growth if you're dependent on customers.
But those people needed to find a place to live. And
yeah, that's right.
You were helping to do that.
I'm their guy.
You're the guy. So, I mean, is there, and I don't know anything about I haven't really been to too many places within Clarksville. Is there a place in Clarksville where you say, I kind of feel glad and a little bit proud that I've been involved in seeing that grow and become a significant part of what is going on here?
Yeah, I've done a lot of subdivisions. I think I'm proud of most of them. A lot of them we put in fitness centers and pools and elevated trails through wetlands, and I get to have, that's fun for me. We just built one development out in off Warfield Boulevard where we built this really cool what we call an observatory, which is a community structure overlooking the Red River with custom furniture and e-pay, and it's really neat. And then I'm doing a development now on a former Major League Baseball player's farm. His name was Horace Lisenby. He was the last Major League Baseball player born in the 1800s to play in the 1900s. He played in like 3 decades. He's a relief pitcher. He struck out Murderers Row all but one time he pitched to him. And so we're building a baseball field in that particular development. And my daughter, she and a friend that worked at our farm, our street signs have baseball bats leaning up against them. We're Clarksville Foundry, which is owned by Charlie Faust, who's an old childhood friend of mine. is casting these bats for us. She designed the signs, but we didn't realize we couldn't buy 48-inch long metal baseball bats. Dumb us. So I think we're spending $2,000 a piece to have them cast. And she also designed these little baseballs that are on top of the street sign. So it's going to be they're going to call it Lawson and Chad's Folly, I think, when it's done with. But yeah, I have a lot of fun. I've done a lot of nice developments. I live in Glenwood, which is an older neighborhood built in the 20s and 30s, and in the middle of downtown Clarksville. And we've got a park in front of our house that all the neighborhood kids play in. And so I incorporate parks, playgrounds, things like that into all of my developments. And we try to. I think we probably have I think we're probably Chad and I are probably known as we do a little. Our developments are probably more like what you'd see in larger cities than what you see in Clarksville. So yeah, we're proud of them, and I would never live in one of my own developments. So that's one thing I've never done. But matter of fact, my wife made me hold a lot back in one development lately, and I've still got it, but I haven't told her yet that it'd be a cold day in hell before I move there, because I don't want to go somewhere every time somebody didn't like someone's fence or
that's
someone parking their car in the right place, they'd be banging on my door.
Probably a good idea. And since you brought Beth up, I would like to share the story of that, as you mentioned, she is a former Austin P homecoming queen.
Yes, that's right.
Which is she totally deserved. I mean, she's beautiful, and I think
I'll tell her you said that.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, Lawson, what was your magic?
I don't know. I think may have been poor eyesight, maybe. I don't know. I have no idea. Glad to find her. Outkicked my coverage, I guess. But yeah, she's a good one.
So besides excelling at real estate, you also somehow got into banking.
Yeah, I've had a really interesting career in banking, Buzz.
So how did that happen?
I think it was early to mid 80s. There was a pretty good sized wave of bank consolidation, and we had 3 local banks plus a savings bank, 2 savings banks, which were both mutually owned, so not stock owned, but mutual savings banks. And so the 3 major banks all sold. And I had a good friend of mine, Earl Bradley, who we grew up. I mean, we played together since we were 2 years old. And I went to him. I said, "Earl, we need to start a bank." And I said, and he was pretty up. He was at a bank that had been acquired, and he wasn't really enjoying life. And so a group of us, there were 9 or maybe 10 local business people, agreed to front John Halliburton, who came on as vice president, Earl's president, CEO, and we'll go out and raise $4 million, and start a bank. Well, that sounded really good. I think I had $60,000 in an IRA. That's all the money I had, and I was willing to bet the farm. I thought, well, this can't go wrong. And so we had to go out and sell stock. And so we set, I think, a $5,000 minimum. I think we had about $600,000 raised with our incorporators, maybe $700,000, something like that. And we targeted. We kind of went through the neighborhoods in town and targeted the neighborhoods with big houses. And we came back after a couple of weeks, pretty defeated, because we found out those people with big houses, they had big house payments, and they didn't have any money to invest.
High mortgages.
Yeah. And so, we totally misjudged our market. So we kept dropping our max, and we finally dropped it to $200. And we ended up with 900 shareholders. We were supposed to have like 200, and 900 pushed you in this incredibly complex reporting regime with the SEC and the FDIC. And we finally got it open, and I think we raised $4 million, and we sold it. I think we sold it in 9 years for $62 million in 1989 to a bank. We grew the bank. I think we became the largest bank in town. I think we came at $10 a share, and I think we sold it for $92 a share, something like that. Really good. And so we thought, we went on the advisory board of the institution that acquired us, and I eventually resigned that. It was just not any fun. And about that time, a board member for First Federal Savings Bank, which was a mutual savings bank, approached Earl and wanted to know, try to get him to come in and be president. He turned him down. Another board member approached Johnny Halliburton to be president, and he turned him down. And they told me, and that was their big mistake. And I said, guys, I think this is a pretty good opportunity. I said, this is a mutual savings bank, and they've got $23 million in capital, and that just gets given to the shareholders if we ever take it public. And so we went down to my cabin at the lake with a stack of papers, 1.5 feet tall, and went through all the loan documents, and we couldn't really see that there were any loan problems. They'd been fairly conservative in their loan. And so we went in there, and the existing board exited, and we recruited a new board with some new people and some people from our old bank. I went on as chairman of the board, and we took over First Federal Bank, Savings Bank, and then we needed capital, so we took it public, did a NASDAQ IPO on it, and ran it for a number of years. We took it private a few years later, delisted from the NASDAQ, and then we sold that bank to in like 2020, we sold it to Reliant Bank in Brentwood, about $2.5 billion bank there, and I went on their board. So that was my third bank, and then we sold that bank about 2 years ago. Our CEO had stomach cancer, and it was a good time to sell. We had some issues. We did really good. Our shareholders made a lot of money. And so we sold that bank to United Community Bank out of Georgia in I think January of 2021, or 2022, I think. Yeah. And so that ended my 30-something year accidental career in banking. And, it was great. We made a lot of money. We put a lot of kids in Clarksville through college. I guarantee you, we created a tremendous amount of wealth in Clarksville. And, we all had stock too, but there were a lot of people who made a lot of money in Clarksville on our bank. So, I think from what we ended up getting out of, I'm trying to think, I think our stake in First Federal at the end of the sale was probably $140 million or something like that, that we got from, and much of that was owned by people in Clarksville. So it was good. I think it's a good news story.
Yeah, and not too bad for a kid leaving Austin Peay with an English degree.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah. Yep. I credit my English degree to my good fortune.
So let's talk about some other things. You mentioned that you had an encounter, and you teased this about the country music legend Willie Nelson.
Oh, Willie Nelson, yeah. So when I was at Austin Peay, I was a pike. The Greek scene was pretty big back then, and I was pike, and I was president of the Pikes. And the president before me was a guy named Mike Fletcher. He's dead now, but Mike was Willie Nelson's nephew. His mother was Bobby Nelson, who just died. Willie's older sister, who taught Willie how to play guitar. She played piano in his band, and so Willie was a songwriter before he got famous, and he had a farm in Ridgetop, which was about 10 miles from Springfield. Had a big teepee on it. It was really cool, huge teepee that he had, and Mike was president of the Pikes and president of the Austin Peay Student Body as well. And so Willie, we always knew about Willie, but then Red-Headed Stranger happened. The album, with all the great songs on it. And he was on the cover of Time magazine and such. So when Mike went, he was in law school down at Memphis, and he called me. He said, Mom and Willie are touring. You want to go on tour with them? I said, hell yeah. So the first weekend. We were in Nashville, and I remember Tanya Tucker was 15, and she was the opening act, and Charlie Daniels was the second, and it was Willie, and so we were with
Wow.
Bobby, and there was a boutique hotel before there were boutique hotels in Nashville called Spence Manor. It was right across from Country Music Hall of Fame, and I remember Willie came in and said, "Mike Lawson, y'all want to go to the studio with me?" He said, "George Jones is down at Studio B, and he's kind of on hard times, and I'm going to do a couple of songs with him. I think it'll help his career." So we went down to Studio B, and they did a couple. Willie and George did a couple of songs. I thought it was pretty sweet of Willie, because Willie was doing really well and George wasn't, and so he helped him out. And then that night we went to the concert and came back. But I remember Bobby, we got back to the hotel about midnight. She said, "Y'all want some apple pie a la mode?" I thought, well, how do you get that at 2 a.m? Of course, I'm just old, from Clarksville. I didn't know room service. Excuse me. Didn't know room service worked at 2 a.m. And so we got apple pie a la mode. And about 20 minutes after, somebody knocked on the door and gave her a big bag of cash. And that was back, I guess, Willie got in tax trouble. I know why. But then the next weekend they were in Memphis. So I got on. The bus was in Memphis. I think, I can't remember. It's been so long. I think I got on the bus and rode down there and it was August 16th, 1977. And so we were in the Hyatt Hotel out on the Parkway in Memphis. It was on the ring road there, and we were watching Marathon Man on the TV. And the discussion was about Jerry Lee Lewis, because Jerry Lee was a terrible drunk, and they had a piano set up for him, and they were worried about not being able to get him off the stage because he'd be drunk, and he'd ruin their show. And so anyway, we talked about that, and that was when HBO first came out, and HBO was a movie service for hotels. And you probably, I don't know if you remember or not,
yeah.
Maybe before your time, and so I remember Sir Lawrence Olivier was about to drill, kept going to Dustin Hoffman. Is it safe? Is it safe? And about to drill a hole in Dustin Hoffman's tooth. And Snake, the guitar player, comes crashing in the room. He says, "Willie, you won't believe this. Elvis just died."
Oh.
and we all sat there, and Willie said, "I saw him last month. He's doing a lot of drugs. I bet he overdosed." And he said, "Maybe Jerry Lee won't show up at the show tonight." And so we all got in the car. We got in my car and went out I tried to get to Graceland, and you couldn't go anywhere in Memphis. Everyone's driving around with their lights on and everything. So anyway, the show had the show that night and everything. So that I've got the best "Where Were You When Elvis Died" story. And then about a year later, the next year, Austin Peay had Willie come perform at the Dunn Center for a big concert.
Mm-hmm.
He sold it out. I mean, it was 8,000 people. They had Flying Burrito Brothers, Tracy Nelson. I can't remember who all they had. It was a big show, and so had that party. And Tex called me up and said, Mike called me up and said, "Lawson, Willie wants to see you." I said, "Hell, we'll have a party for him at the Pike House, Tex." And so after the show, Willie shows up with Farron Young, and I don't know if you know who he is. He's an old country music star, and then had this turquoise Lincoln Continental Mark III with a white vinyl top. It was the funniest damn thing I'd ever seen. Just hideous thing. If it had antlers on the front, it couldn't have been worse. But anyway, they came in there, and so Willie and I, we were all hanging out. Had a big crowd there, and Farron was an alcoholic, and he was drunker than Cooter Brown, and and the guys took all his money on the pool table. And about every 30 minutes, one of the guys would take Willie out and drive him around the block. I don't know what they're doing, but anyway, they left and would come back. And about 3 a.m, I look over there, and there's Farron just passed out on the pool table. And I said, "Look," I said, "Willie," I said, "Yeah," I said, "This Farron's passed out." I said, "Oh man, I got to go, Lawson." And so anyway, I had the guys pick Farron up off the pool table and load him in the back of his Lincoln Continental. And Willie got in the driver's seat. I said, "Man, can you drive, Willie?" He said, "Yeah, I'm just going to Ridge Top. I'm good. I'll see you later." Took off, and I never saw him again. But that's my Willie Nelson history.
Oh
Is
my
that
gosh.
worth? Is that worth the? Is that
That
worth the
was worth
thumbnail?
it. That was a great tease too. Um, so that's not the only brush with celebrity that you have, because you also have a famous in-law.
Yeah, I do.
And not only that, I found out recently you are the hoop-de-doo man
I am.
in
That's
one
me.
of her stories.
Yeah, I'll forever be known as a hoop-de-doo man, I guess, Buzz. I don't
So
know. I
what's
don't
it
know how I
like
feel
being
about that.
what's it like being connected to Leanne Morgan?
Oh, it's just great. I mean, she's my sister-in-law, and I mean, she's always been funny, and she's been doing comedy for years. And someone said, the other day, they said, "Who does her writing?" I said, "She doesn't have any writing." I said, "We've heard every one of those stories. We've heard those stories for years." I said, "She just sees." She called us last week, it's about a month ago, and said, "Beth, I've been looking for a mattress, and I went to the store today, and I said, I need to buy a mattress." And the salesman looked at me and he said, "Do you have neck problems?" She said, "Well, no." I said, "But if you do, this is a really good mattress. We recommend this one." And he walked around and said, "If you have shoulder problems, we recommend this one. If you have lower back issues, this is a really good mattress here. And if your legs or feet bother you, we recommend this one." And she said, "I didn't know I was sick. I just wanted to buy a mattress." So I guarantee you that will end up in her act one day. But she just sees things in just a funny way. But she's just doing. We're flying to L.A. early in the morning to be with her this weekend. She's performing at the Netflix is a Joke Comedy Fest at the Pantage Theater in Hollywood on Saturday. So we're going to go see her perform and hang out with her a little bit. But yeah, she's got a lot going on. It's pretty crazy, isn't it?
It is, and sold out shows here in Clarksville, which was great to see. People just love, love, love her.
Did you enjoy your show? Did you get to
Oh,
see it?
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And my wife Pam is an even bigger
Yeah,
fan.
she's a big fan. She's a super fan, isn't she?
She's a super. She stops me all the time to show me the latest video.
Well, she's got. I don't know if you saw the latest. Netflix bought two more specials, stand-up specials for 25 and 27, and she has. This has been in the works for a while, but they announced this week that she's going to star, co-produce, and co-write a sitcom with Chuck Lorre.
Yep.
And Amazon's bought 2 seasons of that, and they start filming that in October. So it's so funny because they had the plot of the sitcom in the release, which said after 33 years, Leanne's husband leaves her, and she has to find a way to, make it through life. I can't remember. I'm paraphrasing. And all these fans started saying, "I can't believe he left you." Her daddy called us. Beth and I were on the way to Nashville Saturday night, and her dad called and said, "Beth, Bobby Dean called and said Chuck had left Leanne." I said, Beth said, "Daddy, that is a description of the plot of the sitcom." "Well, no. He said that Kay read it, and he left her." Yeah, and we had to convince our daddy that Chuck had not left Leanne, and it's taken on a life of its own. He actually got him a Facebook page to say, "I haven't left my wife." Well, that's going to be that'll probably make a pretty good routine. But it's like we called her. I said, "Leanne, all these people on your are thinking that Chuck left you." She said, "I don't have time for this. I'm getting ready to go on stage. I'll talk to y'all later."
Oh, brother.
So
Well,
anyway,
I'm sure
yeah,
that makes it very interesting to be around her, for not only just as seeing her life accelerate in that way, but also just be to see her success. I'm sure that's
Oh,
something we both enjoy.
it is so much fun. I mean, my son had this horrible auto wreck on the way to college about 7 years ago, and he's okay, and car was bad shape, but he's okay. And we were on I-40 on the side of the interstate. It was around Clarksville, and I asked the EMT. I said, "Would you mind taking Will to the hospital so we can get a CT scan, get him evaluated?" He said, "Oh no, sir, I'll be happy to." So we closed the door, and Will said, the guy said, your mama sure sounds like this comedian I like. Will was sitting there in shock, and he said, "It's my aunt." And the guy said, "No way." So I mean, the kids are they're kind of over it. It's kind of it's kind of they get a lot of but it's I mean, our social standing has improved. We're getting more invitations, and people want to be around us. It's kind of like she's going to be at my son's graduation, so that'll be a it's getting pretty hard for her. She is a big star. She's got a movie with Reese Witherspoon and Will Ferrell coming out Valentine's Day of next year, and I mean she's going to be a big star. So it's great, but it's been fun for us, and especially I'm the hoop to do man, so I never really thought of myself as a part of the whole. It's a hoop to do class, but I guess I am. Relatively speaking.
Yeah, relative. It's all in perspective there.
Compared to Adams.
So I think we've talked a lot about things. I always like to end with a question for our guests to say, what kind of recommendations might you have for a student, somebody like yourself that, coming into Austin Peay, not sure what the path he's going to follow or she's going to follow?
Yeah, I didn't have any path, and I kind of created my own. But I would say network as much as you can. Get involved in student organizations, sports, fraternity, whatever it is. But make as many contacts as you can. I don't think you'll ever have as good a time to really make. And you never know what contact will lead to an opportunity. You're around more people than you'll be around the rest of your life. You've got 4 years where you're really going to have the ability to make some contacts. And there's a lot of serendipity that occurs just if you get yourself out there. I had an old broker one time that he would tell the agents that see the people. And I know when I first started my real estate career, I didn't have anything to do. I'd go out and be where I could meet people. I've watched my children and how they have approached the professional world. It's good to study and it's good to be bookish, but you really need, if you apply to graduate, whether you're going to go to graduate school or if you're going to go into the workforce or whatever you're going to do, the more contacts you make with people, positive connections you make with people, the smoother your path will be. And I firmly believe that has been a big part of my success. I've always been involved in I think I sit on 3 philanthropic boards right now. I've started 2 private foundations in Clarksville, one for the public library and one for Clarksville Academy. Give back as much as you can. And by doing that, you put yourself in contact with people who are in a position to help you, and will take an interest in your cause, so to speak, and also go out of their way to help you. So I just think I see a lot of kids who think that college is all about gaining knowledge, but it's more than that. I think it's about making connections. And for the rest of your life. And I made a few of those that made a difference in my vocational career. It's just a good time to push the boundaries and take a little personal risk. Get out there and try to, get out of your comfort zone a little bit. That would be my suggestion. I did it plenty, and it's certainly benefited me.
It certainly has. And Lawson, my friend, I appreciate not only the time we've had here. I think that your stories are you're very funny. Maybe not Leanne Morgan funny, but you can tell a good story. And
I appreciate that.
Your time.
Okay. Thanks, Buzz. I enjoyed it.
And
Let's
thanks
go
for all,
P.
yeah, let's go P. That's right. And thanks to all of our viewers and listeners out there for checking out the podcast. We hope you will join us as we continue to profile some of the outstanding alumni we have here in the College of Arts and Letters at Austin Peay State University. So until next time, stay safe, take care, and God bless.